So I would like to first introduce you with our panelists here. So to my very right, we have with us Michele Ziosi, who is the head of Institutional Relation of Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific at CNH Industrial, Italy. And you will tell us in a just brief moment, what is CNH Industry?
Take this one.
Yes, just briefly.
Yeah, CNH Industrial actually born in 2013 after the spin-off of Fiat from CNH Global. And I mean, Fiat Industrial was a leader in trucks and powertrains, and CNH leader in construction equipment and agricultural machines. So now as a multinational with 70,000 employees, with a turnover of about $25 billion, it's a lot of hundreds of research centers all around the world.
Thank you. And to the very left end, we have with us our Israeli partner, Dr. Arieh Meitav. Dr. Arieh Meitav is the CTO of ETV Energy, but he has over 35 years of industrial experience of both being the developer and being the one that makes the actual commercialization of a varied and of systems for batteries and fuel cells and ultracapacitors. So we'll hear him later. Mr. Clement Chandon is the first thing you have to know about him, that he has a flight leaving very soon. That's the very most important thing you must learn about him. And he is with us also from the IVECO. He is the head of the gas development for IVECO in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and is in charge of commercial stakeholders relations and of engagement boosting of the natural gas infrastructure for transport. And last but not least, Dr. Klaus Bonhoff, the managing director of the now GmbH National Organization Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technology, is actually the coordinator of the German National Program for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells. So, Chandon, I'll have you for our first and very important question, the take-home message you want people here to hear before you have to leave with your flight and to wrap up this very great future summit we had here. You know, many alternative fuels and advanced driveline technologies exist in the automotive industry, and this since more than a century, as electric, hybrid, and gas-powered cars were invented already in the 19th century. Now, as IVECO have developed many of them. Could you tell us for the commercial vehicles, which are the fundamental criteria that an alternative technologies should fulfill to become successful and to eventually beat the diesel supremacy?
Thank you, Bracha. So yes, indeed, when we develop new technologies in IVECO, we are always trying not to be in a niche, but to develop a new range of vehicle designed to suit most customer needs. And I think we succeed to do it with the CNG and LNG commercial vehicles. It's a story that we have started 20 years ago, and now we see ourselves accelerating greatly in the past years. So why this success? And we hope also that, of course, Israel will be the next success. We are already the first to have successfully commercialized heavy-duty vehicles here. And I think the first question we should raise is, what is a truck? A truck is a vehicle that is designed to carry goods, the biggest possible quantity, so the payload is extremely important. Is the reason of having a truck is payload, in a very, very economical way and in a very versatile way. The truck is the preferred technology to move goods on Earth because it is cheap, versatile, and so it can do a lot of mission. So the first things we have to have in mind when we design an alternative driveline or a vehicle that uses an alternative technology is to beat the diesel engine and gasoil fuel winning solution. So it is possible. The diesel has not been the only fuel for trucks. And before we had coals, we had petrol, and then the diesel became the predominant energy after the Second World War. But we can beat this technology. But it's not easy. It's not easy because the diesel engine has seen its performance enhanced year after year since 80 years. So if we put ourselves in the place of our customer, they never want to make a step back. If we have to come with something that is cleaner, it has to be at least as good as diesel. It means as good in terms of total cost of ownership, in terms of performance, in terms of versatility, in terms of safety, and in terms of comfort for the driver. If we don't succeed in this, we will never pretend to have an alternative. And when I think an alternative is not just something that goes on road, but it's something that at the end has the potential to replace the diesel energy. And this is always where the alternative technology fails. We do also electric vehicles, and they are very good vehicles for city distribution. But at the moment, they are not able to do much more than this. So to beat the diesel, we need payload, nothing less than diesel, versatility as diesel, so many mission. This means also long range, and this is what we get today with LNG, for example. And we need performance. The second thing, of course, we are looking for alternative, the second major criteria, to get something which is more sustainable. And here, all the alternatives that have been developed so far and will be developed, of course, fulfill these things, which means less CO2, which means to protect the air we are breathing, so essentially zero or close to zero particulate and NOx, and it's also noise. Which is interesting to notice with gas is that it's a global answer because it tackles the air quality issue, it reduces CO2, it could be a very big amount if you are using biomethane, so it's natural gas produced from waste, and also it reduces noise. So it is versatile in performance, it's good in terms of cost, and also it's a global solution in terms of the main external cost of the transport. But then we should not forget the fuel. To have an alternative to diesel, we need a fuel network that is self-sustainable. Self-sustainable, it means it's the same for our clients. A client that is buying a gas truck should make money with this truck. A company investing in gas station should be able to make money with this business. So if we want an alternative, it has to be convenient for the end user, and it has to be convenient as well for the people selling the energy. And this implies that the product is recognized as a fuel, so it means there is a quality standard, a safety standard, and a tax. A fuel without a tax doesn't exist. So with CNG, we have all this, and there is sufficient margin for the distributor of the fuel, and sufficient fuel saving for the end users so that the technology can be adopted in mass. And so, because we beat the diesel in overall performance, we are cleaner, and the people supplying the gas can live with this activity, we really think we have an alternative to the market in the heavy business, and I want to say probably today the only alternative, because it's the only solution available now, industrialized, that can transport even 29 tons of goods up to 1,500 kilometers.
Thank you very much. And I wouldn't like to be the one responsible for you. I wouldn't like to be the one responsible for you missing your flight. So let's everyone please thank Chandon and send him to his journey. Have a nice flight, and we'll continue our discussion here we'll send you the highlights from our discussion. Don't worry, okay? Thank you. Okay, so here we left. And we heard about how a global enterprise deals with different technologies. And Arieh, I would like to point it to you. Being a developer and an inventor, do you think different technologies, competitive technologies, coexist in one firm?
Well, first of all, I would say, is it a question in one firm or in one market? In one company or in one market? So regarding the market, I consider it's not competitive, but it's completing technologies. The market needs all of the technologies, including lithium batteries. There are a wide family of lithium batteries, so all these systems are required for different applications like HEV, PHEV, and EV. So this is number one. Number two, fuel cells. Again, fuel cell in most cases don't operate by itself, so you need a hybrid, you need supercap, so again, it's combining different technologies. ICE probably I say a few words later, but in principle, I consider that ICE also has a place in automotive electrification. I never say EV, it's automotive electrification. These are hybrids like plug-in HEVs and et cetera, and including mentioning different technologies. Momentarily, I come also to within same company, but talking on different technologies, I will say we had yesterday a very nice session on fuel cells. So assuming there is a solution accepted by the market, by the industry, that you can use compressed hydrogen, whatever the hydrogen is. So then I would just to remind all of us that we are aware of it, that today there are internal combustion engines running on hydrogen as a fuel. There are some issues of NOx which can be solved. You have to modify a bit your internal combustion engine. Talking on fuel cells, the practical efficiency typical fuel cell is about 50% altogether. Today they are now running an internal combustion engine as a range extender at optimal performance. You can get more than 40%. I believe more. 41, I have such an article. So practically you can get, especially modifying or verifying the internal combustion engine. It's not necessarily piston, there are different warps. You can reach 45 in principle efficiency. So then if the hydrogen storage is acceptable, so then we are comparing the fuel cell industry with all the questions of cost on this versus internal combustion engine running by hydrogen. This is, so this is talking about market. Again, I consider all these technologies can be topologically wise to be combined together as a market. It's not competing. The market will need all these technologies together. Regarding same firm, same company, here we have to split different disciplines, talking on lithium-ion systems. Lithium-ion system, yes, different. Today there are 4 or 5 commercial systems, also future systems, lithium-ion. Most of them, in principle, are and can be done in same company, if this is the direction. Fuel cell is a different discipline, so mostly it's not in a lithium battery system. Of course, engines, it's also very much different company. So it's difficult to say that all technologies related to the automotive can be produced in the same firm. If you mean firm, it's a company.
Not a startup, of course.
No, not a startup. Probably they can deal with a lot of this, yes. But it's a different story, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Arieh. Dr. Klaus.
No. Probably you.
Dr. Klaus, I wondered, having your experience and all the activities you are performing in Germany regarding the move into hydrogen and the fuel cell for the transportation sector, would you say that there are some core customer infrastructure policy that has to be there before we enter a novel technological adventure? Or do you think we can take some risks?
You always have to take risk. There's no way around that. Let me just highlight before I directly go to your question what we do as an organization. Our name is Hydrogen and Fuel Cells, but actually on behalf of the German government we are coordinating not only the hydrogen and fuel cell program, but also a large part of the electric mobility, as in battery electric mobility part program. And we're looking into power-based fuels, so basically the mobility and fuel strategy of the German government, which includes introducing other energy sources into the sector as well. So we cover a broader spectrum, and to your point, that portfolio will be needed, and it's not either or, but those are all complementary technologies that will be needed for the transition. Now, I don't think it's really an adventure, the change we're looking at. It's really a necessity. Sustainable mobility will require zero-emission vehicles and fuels based on renewable power. Maybe not within the next 5 years, that's not going to happen, that's not achievable, but ultimately that's where we need to go, otherwise we will not meet the COP21 targets, CO2 reduction. So that's a must for everybody in the business, whether you talk about road, rail, air, whatever kind of transportation it is. In a business as usual scenario, we will not see ramp up of these technologies fast enough. And we need ramp up in order to get to economies of scale to reduce the cost. So there is that dependency there. Now, first and foremost, really policy to me is a must. It's a requirement to have a stable regulatory framework that makes sure that this change is happening and that the industry has to adopt in a certain way without, giving technological solutions from a public point of view. But, asking industry, do everything you can to achieve CO2 targets. So that is important, and the OEMs will always look for the least cost way to comply with regulation. So the regulatory framework is key. Without infrastructure, it will not happen. We need electric infrastructure, recharging infrastructure, and we need hydrogen infrastructure. We have that discussion in Germany. Both are expensive. Do we have to do both? Yes, we have to do both, and both are not as expensive as some people think it is. And ultimately, at least with hydrogen, we've made the case that a profitable infrastructure can be operated as well. European Union has issued the European Directive on Alternative Fuels. Every member state in Europe is now obliged to come up with a plan how to install infrastructure for power, for CNG and LNG for that matter, but also for hydrogen. And Germany will, within the next couple of weeks, commit their plan to the European Commission. And in Germany, we have a program in place, 300 million euro to co-finance, to fund recharging infrastructure. And the German government has just recently announced that they will continue the National Innovation Program on hydrogen and fuel cells until 2026, which will also include support of building up hydrogen infrastructure. And this is all only possible in public-private partnerships, so it has to be a joint effort in order to do this. Now, from a customer point of view, the challenge is that we need technologies for mass market. Otherwise, we cannot have the impact that we need. The first customers, though, are early adopters, communities, fleet operators. So talking about the infrastructure, the challenge is to do the right infrastructure at the least cost possible for these first customers, but at the same time making sure that that is the baseline for a mass market deployment. So that's a little bit the challenge we're facing, and the CNG case in Germany is probably an interesting one because CNG in Germany, from a customer point of view, still today is seen as a fleet vehicle application. We have to be careful that electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, are not perceived as specialty vehicles for some fleets, but that these are really mass market applications.
Michele? Working, right? Yeah, okay. Do you see the transportation sector, from your point of view and from your global opportunity to see how things are being happening throughout the world, do you see the transportation sector going through a conceptual revolution, or do you see it more as an evolutionary process, getting away from the diesel?
So First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and for the question. I found all interventions yesterday and today really very interesting and also really visionary. Also, the message that your Prime Minister sent yesterday at the gala dinner was really, really inspiring, I would say. And to answer your question, actually, I prepared some notes, but as you know, I lost my glasses today. So if you say something stupid, it's only up to me. So I try to answer your question. I don't have an answer really, but I want to make some sample related to our experience as CNH Industrial, mainly experience of IVECO, our on-road business, and our agricultural business as well. Talking specifically on CNG, the compressed natural gas, LNG, the liquefied natural gas, and the other technologies. But I want to start being provocative because we are here talking about the transition to something else than diesel, but I really would say that in the last 2 decades, actually the automotive industry reduced CO2 really in an amazing way. In terms of trucks, we reduce about 20% of the CO2. The particulates is near to zero, and we are worked a lot to reduce also NOx. But certainly we need to make a step forward. And we need to make a revolution, as you mentioned. But a lot of things has been done in terms of conventional technologies. IVECO has in its portfolio since 1996 electric vehicles, and from then we sold kind of 86 vehicles running on electricity, which is actually not sustainable in terms of economics for a company. And why it happens? Because the systems as a whole was not ready to receive this kind of products, and that's why we see a problem in the not application of an integrated approach. As an integrated approach, we mean the role of institutions, the OEMs, the producers and the customers, because we didn't consider really the need of the customers at the time. And we made the same mistake also talking about CNG, because in the last 90s, IVECO and FPT developed a very good CNG engine for on-road application, also for light commercial vehicles. But we didn't consider all the thousands of missions that commercial vehicles have for actually transporting goods. And that it was a problem, because actually the customer was not ready to buy this kind of vehicle, because the network infrastructure was not ready as well in the old Italian territories. It's quite significant, the fact that 80% of the vehicles we sold during the last 10 years were concentrated in the region where the network infrastructure was pretty much developed. But then we tried to solve this kind of problem, and we sit together with the institution and with other important stakeholders of the industrial chain of CNG, and we signed up also memorandum of understanding together with FCA, for example, and SNAM, the gas infrastructure company in Italy, in order to put in place some actions in order to prepare the field for the real development of CNG in Italy. And we work also together with the institution, installing a kind of dialogue with them in order to promote the directive was mentioned right before, for the definition of minimum distances among the different refilling stations all around, in order to give to the customer a right service, which is actually necessary. At the time, we also found some years ago the lack of a clear regulatory framework. Just to give you an example, it was not possible to refill in a self-service mode the CNG vehicles, which was really a law coming from the 30s, which is, was not aligned with the new technologies in place. So it was absolutely absurd, and we found it a kind of constraint for the customer, which couldn't refill the cars during during the night, for example, as the conventional fuels. And then we set everything, and actually we see the market growing and growing, talking about CNG. But now that we are also promoting the liquefied natural gas for trucks, we tried not to make the same mistakes. And before launching our vehicle, which is actually the best in class, and we were the first to put into the market this vehicle, we prepared the field. In Italy, we have already 10 stations of LNG, and there are in the pipeline the same numbers of stations. So pretty much the number we need to cover the territories. But IVECO itself is building up a couple of stations for the time being in our facilities in order to provide to our customers the possibility to go around with our vehicles. So, as I said, we learned a lot from our mistakes. And to answer your question, yeah, we can do a revolution only if we prepare the field applying a real integrated approach.
Thank you. Okay, we see that we are out of time, but we have a privilege as being the last speakers of this summit to send the people here with a take-home message, something that they will bear in mind at least until the next summit. So please, I'll have each one of you give his take-home message for the audience who's still here with us. Please, Arieh.
Well, take-off message again in the area of automotive industry, you mean? Okay, so I will say that it's not a revolution, it's evolution, and it's coming, but nobody should look for the best solution or the winning solution. It's going to be a combination of many different technologies. And the message is that proper business approach to the market is one of the winning routes to put the electrified automotive industry into the market. The best example, that's unfortunately Better Place and Tesla. Both of them don't have no special IPs. Both of them are based on business plans and different approaches. And today, Tesla is, nobody has to say what happened, what happens with Tesla. And so this is, I will say, one of the messages, aside the technology. I'm a technological man, but be aware that to put something new, the business is very important.
What we see is a change the way our mobility sector is provided with energy. What we see is a change within the industry around the whole value chain. Is it revolution or evolution? I once learned that you cannot make a revolution with the king. But we need the industrial capacity of all industries involved, including the large industries, oil industry, car industry, to make that change happen. So I would call it an evolution, but an accelerated evolution, because that change is not only necessary, but it's feasible, and we need to start today.
Thank you very much. A very simple message that we must be visionary, and we have to keep being visionary, but we must be also concrete, having always in mind our customer, our final customer, the citizens, the business case as well, because that's really important, but also having always in mind a well-to-wheel approach, because the source of the energy is, in terms of environmental benefit, must be considered all the time when we're talking about transport. It's not only the pipe, the pipe which has to be considered, but also the whole cycle of the transport sector.
So thank you very much. I'd like to thank the audience, our panelists, and of course the Fuel Cell, the Fuel Choice Initiative for this great summit. Thank you.